Okay, good afternoon. So we're coming towards the end of the 5th chapter of Maaser Sheni, and we're going through what the Mishnah is going to call, or what the Mishnah does call, the confession, the vidui. Interesting, we're coming up to Yom Kippur, and so we're focused on vidui, and yet the Mishnah is focused on a different kind of vidui. The Mishnah is focused on the vidui, not of Yom Kippur, but the vidui that we make when we bring our Maaser Sheni up to Jerusalem. And we began this a couple of days ago. We began looking at it. We remove all the tithes from our houses and we say, Biarti al-Kodesh min habayit, vegam netativ la-levi vela-ger, la-yatom vela-amana. We read it last Shabbat. That's the beginning of the vidui. It's the confession. Yeah, it's the confession over the Maaser. But the vidui continues. And we're going to find that the Mishnah follows the vidui pasuk, pasuk. So for every pasuk, there is a Mishnah. So let's have a look. We're going to follow it in that pattern. Let's have a look at the pasukim and the Mishnayot which correspond. So the pasuk continues. Lo achalti v'oni mimenu. I haven't eaten from it. Mimenu, lo achalti v'oni mimenu. I haven't eaten from it in my morning. V'lo viarti mimenu b'tameh. I didn't get rid of it in a state of uncleanliness. V'no natati mimenu lemeit. I didn't give any of it to a dead person. And I must say, when I first read these words, and I've sort of read, we've all read these words every year, right? When I first came across these, I thought this was referring to some kind of Canaanite death ritual. And it's very interesting that neither the Mishnah nor the commentators make any reference to this at all. But it says, V'lo natati mimenu lemeit. I haven't given any of it to a dead person. And then, Shamati b'kol Hashem Elohai. I've heard the voice of the Lord my God. I have done everything that you commanded me. So that's the pasuk in the vidui, which we recite when we go to Jerusalem with our Maaser Sheni. And the Mishnah is going to explain it. Lo achalti v'oni mimenu, that means im achlu v'anina eino yachol hitfadot. If he'd eaten from it in his aninut, he can't make the confession. And the Mishnah is going to refer to aninut in the halachic definition of someone who's suffered the loss of a close relative. So this will be a father or a mother or a brother or a sister or a wife or a child, but hasn't buried them yet. If someone has died but they haven't been buried, you're considered an onen. Or an onena. You're not obligated in any mitzvot. Actually, it's a very peculiar limbo state. And the Rabbanan, the status of aninut continues until the end of the day of the funeral. So the Mishnah is going to delineate. I didn't eat from the Maaser Sheni while I was an onen, while I was in this state. I guess because no mitzvot, you can't do that. I mean, you're free of all mitzvot while you're in that state. You can't possibly fulfill the mitzvah of eating the Maaser Sheni. And then, v'lo biarti mimenu b'tameh. I didn't remove any of it when unclean. And the Mishnah says, look, if you removed it in uncleanness, you can't make the confession because you're going to make the produce has to be eaten in a state of tahara. If you've removed it, not being in a state of tahara, you're going to make that produce tameh, or you certainly may make that produce tameh. So it can't be consumed in the proper way. And I haven't given any of it to the dead. And this is the part of the pasuk that always intrigues me. And it's interesting that the Mishnah has rationalized it. I haven't used any of it for a coffin or shrouds for the dead. I haven't given any of it to other mourners. Maybe you could sell Maaser Sheni for money and then use that money to buy a coffin. That's a no-no. We know that the only thing you can do with Maaser Sheni is eat it drink it, and anoint yourself with it. Yeah, that's the halakha, and you have to do it in Jerusalem. So clearly you can't use it for a coffin or for shrouds. The pasuk continues, Shamati b'kol Hashem Elohai. I've heard the voice of my God. That means Havetiv levet habechira. I brought it to the chosen place. I brought it to the temple. That's what I've listened to the voice. That means I brought it to the temple. It's very interesting that the Mishnah is taking, if you like, the poetic intent of the pasuk and is translating it into a halachic reality, which matches the poetic intent. It's as if this Mishnah is halachic poetry. And then it continues, Asiti kol asher tzivitani, that's the pasuk. And it closes, Samachti vesimachti bo. I have rejoiced and I've made other people rejoice. Again, it's beautiful, really. It's as if it's injecting the sort of the practical fee. It's injecting the emotion into the pasuk in a way that makes it directly comprehensible in the time of the Mishnah. I have rejoiced and I made others rejoice. Samachti vesimachti vo, because you can eat the produce in Jerusalem and you can share it with others. So you can be happy and you can make other people happy. That's the first verse of the continuation of the vidui, of the confession. But the vidui continues. That's not all. So let's go on. And then the vidui goes on with a prayer to God. Look down from your holy habitation, Israel, and bless your people Israel and the earth which you've given us. That's very important. The earth which you've given us. Just as you swore unto our fathers, a land flowing with milk and honey. That's the end of the vidui in the Tana, in Chumash. That's the end of the parsha which we read on Shabbat. And again, the Mishnah is going to translate it. So hashkifa mimon kodshecha, look down from your holy abode. And the Mishnah continues, and the Rambam comments here, by the way. It's his only comment on this whole text. It's very interesting. It's as if the Mishnah is not sufficiently halachic, really, to make it worth commenting for the Rambam. But he does comment here that the pilgrim doesn't say the words in the Mishnah. The pilgrim just says the words in the vidui. But the Mishnah is going to fill out the intent behind those words. And it's actually very, well, it feels very transactional to me. We've done what you decreed. You do what you've promised. It's very transactional. Asinu mashigazarta aleinu af ata'ase ma shehiftachtanu. You do your job. Hashkifa mimon kodshecha. So look down from your holy abode. Uvarech et amcha Yisrael bevanim uvanot. Bless the people of Israel with boys and with girls. That's the most precious blessing that the pilgrims are asking for as they bring their Maaser Sheni to Jerusalem. Bless your people with sons and daughters, boys and girls. And bless the land which you've given us. And the pilgrim and the Mishnah explains, Betal uvmatar uvaldut behema, with dew and with rain and with offspring of cattle. That's what blessing the land is. As you swore to our fathers, giving them a land of milk and honey, so that the fruit should taste really good. The fruit should taste kind of sweet and rich. So that's the end. That's the end of the vidui, of the confession, and of the Mishnah's expression of the confession. And the Mishnah, if you like, is breathing life into the confession. And then it ends with a surprising halakha. From here they said, Mikan amru Yisrael umamzerim mitvadim. Israelites and mamzerim can make the confession, the vidui. Aval lo gerim velo avadim shucharim she'ein lahem chalek ba'aretz. Remember, the confession refer to the land that you've given us. And the Mishnah says, look, if you're a convert or a freed slave, you don't have an inheritance in the land. And Rabbi Meir says, priests and Kohanim and Levim don't have an inheritance either, and they can't make it. Although Rabbi Yossi disagrees, and the halakha actually goes according to Rabbi Yossi. So we seem to be bending over backwards a little bit to help out the priests and the Levim in a way that were not for the converts and the freed slaves. So it seems as though you have to be born in order to make this confession. And the Rambam makes no objection. He just states in his commentary, these people don't have a portion in the land. They don't have an inheritance in the land. But I couldn't resist bringing you, just to conclude this discussion of the vidui in the Mishnah, that of course, with regard to the tefillah, where we say our Eloheinu v'Elahei Avotenu, our Father, our God, and the God of our fathers. So we do refer to our ancestry in the tefillah, just as we refer to the land being given to us in this vidui. And the Rambam rules, he agrees with the Mishnah that the converts don't make the vidui. He agrees with that ruling. But it's very interesting that in terms of the tefillah, we say, our God and God of our fathers. And of course, in his famous letter to Ovadia the Ger, who writes to him and asks him if he can make this declaration in the tefillah, the Rambam writes to him and says, yes, you can say all of this in the prescribed order and not change it in the least, in exactly the same way as every Jew by birth says his blessing and prayer, you should too. And he then relates this to the fact that Avraham was a convert and brought converts to the Jewish people. And we haven't got time to go through the whole of the letter of the Rambam to Ovadia the Ger, but I posted it on the source sheet after these Mishnayot, just so that you can see the difference between the ruling of the Rambam following the Mishnah in terms of the vidui Maaser and the ruling of the Rambam when he's referring to the tefillah. That is nearly the end of the 5th chapter and near the end of the Masechet. We will close tomorrow with the final Mishnah in the Masechet and with the chapter. And we will then simultaneously open the new Masechet of Challah. So that is for tomorrow.